MacVoices is supported by Text Expander by Smile. Find out just how powerful a few keystrokes can be at textexpander.com. Welcome to MacVoices. This is a talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. Folks, we're going to get into the second part of our conversation with Jeff Carlson, the author of Take Control of Apple Watch. This time, Jeff will talk about some of the third-party applications that are out there for the Apple Watch, the importance of the Apple Watch store, and why Apple Watch apps maybe didn't get off the ground quite the way that we had hoped they would, but seem to be gaining ground now. We'll also talk about some of the fitness applications for the Apple Watch, and really why everyone should own one. So, here we go. Jeff, what do you cover at all or talk at all about the third-party apps? You mentioned the app store on the watch, there's so many functions and so many different things that are coming out for the watch. It seems like even after this many generations, new stuff is coming all the time.
Mm-hmm,
Do you make recommendations? Do you cover categories of apps?
A few, yeah. I mean, there are some places where I'll recommend, like a better calendar or something like that. The book does not go deep into, like, say, for example, sleep tracking. Sleep tracking is one area that I know some people are really into with the watch. Apple doesn't have an official sleep tracking app. There are rumors that they will be adding it at some point, but I just made the decision of, like, I could either go down the rabbit hole and try to, go into all the third-party apps. The problem with that is that, some of them, they're there for a while, and then maybe they're not updated. And so, I think that there's a balance, definitely more toward sort of what is offered by Apple, and not sort of going into every rabbit hole of, well, you can also do this, and that's certainly something that I think we can consider for updates to this or the next edition or whatever. But at least in this case, it got to be 170 some pages, and we're like, we need to just ship this. So so there is some of that, definitely, but it's not digging into everything that might be outdated in 3 months or something.
I think that's smart. I mean, and that's the way apps go for iOS, for Mac, for Windows, for Android. You have this pinnacle of the category, and then all of a sudden it either drops or disappears, and then that makes the book out of date.
Right. Well, and also I think looking at the history of the Apple Watch, apps have been kind of in this weird gray area, because when the Apple Watch came out, it was very limited, of course, and then Apple released APIs for developers to write apps for the watch. And at first they were totally tied to the phone, and then watchOS progressed, and so now developers can just write an app for the watch that doesn't necessarily have an iPhone component, like that game I mentioned. But there was kind of like this weird curve where a bunch of developers, like, they got really excited, like, oh, here's a new platform I can write for. I can add extra functionality to my iPhone app. Like a good example. Overcast, which is an app for listening to podcasts. The watch version of that is really very good, and it works together with the phone app. So if you want to have your podcast just on the watch and not on your phone, let's say you want to go for a long walk, you still want to listen to your podcast, you can do that. So there's that kind of integration. But I think that initial thought by developers of, I'm going to make watch apps now, didn't really play out. And I think Apple's trying to catch up with that to try to build that market more. That's why there's now a dedicated app store on the watch, and trying to entice people to make apps for watchOS. But I think at least maybe in the first, I don't know, maybe let's say 2 or 3 years, 2 or 3 revisions of the watch, there was a lot of promise for doing apps, and then there just weren't a whole lot of them. So it's this kind of interesting interesting situation where I think Apple obviously wants more apps because I mean this is a full OS, it's a full platform that you can write for. But I don't know how many people, sort of like average watch users, even know that they can download other apps or even want to look for other apps. Or maybe they download an app on their phone and then suddenly there's a version of it on their watch and they're like, what? Because like that automatically got installed, those kind of things.
That's an interesting point, and I hadn't really thought about it that way, that you buy a watch, and unless you are part of the Apple ecosystem, and that's something I want to touch on in a minute,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of forget about that there are third-party apps for your watch, and unless they happen to get automatically installed, which is
Right.
that can be a blessing and a curse both, depending on how many apps you have.
Right.
Because frankly, some of them, for a while there, it seemed like people were bundling watch apps with their iOS apps just to be
Mm-hmm.
able to say they were doing it. And,
Right.
they really weren't that useful. And then a new crop came along and it's like, okay, some people stopped including them and others said, okay, we have an opportunity here. And they made really great watch apps. So,
Yes.
and now it's my turn because my thoughts completely evaporated.
Well, let me jump in there because so just now I was just looking at my app list to sort of see like how many that I had, and I probably have maybe I don't know 9 or maybe a dozen apps that are third party apps. Some of them are apps that I don't really use as apps, but I'll use as complications. So, in watch terminology, complication is like the thing that you have on your watch face that kind of gives you an extra function. So, for example, there's a weather complication that will tell you what the current weather is, and a weather app. Well, I prefer the Dark Sky app, which is actually Dark Sky actually was just bought by Apple last week. But it partially because I live in Seattle and it helps to know when it's going to rain because it rains. And Dark Sky is really good about like you look down and it'll say, oh, it's going to rain in 20 minutes or something like that, or the rain is expected to stop in 30 minutes. Like that's useful to me, not just that, oh, it's raining. Like obviously I can look outside and see that it's raining. So it's those kind of things that I've found useful for using as third-party apps. There's another one that I use called AnyList, and it's a grocery store. You can build your grocery list. You can also store recipes and things like that. Well, it's super handy to go to the store and basically have my grocery list on my wrist. I don't have to like pull my phone out, especially now when going to the grocery store is not as casual as it used to be. Like now you're going to go to a grocery store under our wonderful quarantines. If you you don't really want to linger, you don't really want to touch things, you don't want to, like all of that we have to deal with now. Well, it's really super handy to be able to just lift my wrist and say, okay, so I've got eggs, I've got milk, I've got this and that and this and that, and it's sort of out of the way, but I can refer to it easily, that kind of thing.
The watch has the potential to become probably your second most personal device behind your phone.
Yeah,
If you just take a little bit of time to learn, and that's where the book comes in. Because I know, at first it was great. I was using like maybe 4 basic functions of the watch, and as it has evolved and I have evolved, I find myself using it regularly. I mean, at first, no, I wouldn't leave the house without it. In fact, if I left the house without it, I'd come back for it, only for the fact that the notifications would appear on my wrist, and I could deal with them. And now, the only time I don't have my watch on is if I'm in the shower. That's when it goes on the charger to charge up for the day, because I really do feel like I need it, and I feel kind of naked without it the rest of the time, because I am always glancing down my watch to see something, whether it's something in a complication or Right now it's been
Yeah.
fun to check Apple stock prices up and down at times. So
It's a big sawtooth grab.
yeah, exactly.
Well,
And
and go ahead.
no, please,
Well,
please.
but the thing I was going to jump in about that, the one thing that has surprised me about the Apple Watch is, and I would be curious to know if the people watching and listening to this have the same experience, which is, like, I think I use my Apple Watch more than I'm even consciously aware of now. Like, there are some things that I've just internalized as being part of the watch that I don't really think of it as a watch feature. Like, for example, I use timers all the time. Whether I just need 10 minutes before I need to finish something, or something's in the oven, and like, if or another good example, I'll put in a load of laundry, right? If I leave the laundry room, which I will do, my brain is like, oh, was I ever in there? And so I will set a timer on my watch so that I can go back to my office, go to the living room, and then after an hour, my timer will go off. I'll be like, oh, right, there's clothes in the washer that otherwise might have stayed there till tomorrow because I would have completely forgotten about it. So like things like that, whether it's just like checking a complication, checking the weather, you know doing like simple math problems occasionally. you know Not to say that I'm bad at math, because I'm fine at math, but I'm a writer, and so every once in a while, I'm I can't quite figure out like how to split this portion up, or I'm cooking. I'm like, okay, well, how many ounces is 3 cups, and you can go and look that up, but you can also just ask the friendly lady in your watch, and you'll get that response, that kind of thing, that you just sort of like that the watch is there, that resource is there, and you use it, and then you don't think about, oh, well, that is a watch app, that is a watch feature. You're just like, oh no, I just need a timer, boom, I just need to see like when is sunset, oh, there it is, that kind of a thing.
MacVoices is supported by Smile, the makers of Text Expander, the most used utility on my Mac. I keep finding new uses for Text Expander. Text that I type repeatedly is a prime obvious candidate, but there are other things. Filling in a chat room name in a program that can't be saved, but that I use regularly. Even URLs of frequently used sites are a piece of cake with Text Expander and are often easier than using a bookmark. And that's just for me as an individual. If you have a team that offers support or interfaces with anyone outside your organization, or even just internal customers, Text Expander helps you keep responses consistent, concise, and easy to access by deploying them across your team. If you value accuracy, and who doesn't, and you find yourself regularly misspelling a word, a name, or something else, set up a Text Expander snippet to automatically correct it for you. Fill out forms, select responses to a query from a menu. The options go on and on. And if you want to get more out of Text Expander, be sure to head over to textexpander.com and watch for the notifications of webinars that are being offered regularly, not just to get you up and off the ground with Text Expander, but also to move you from beginner to intermediate to advanced. You should be using Text Expander, period. So do yourself a favor and visit smilesoftware.com/podcasts to pick up a demo of Text Expander and find out what I know and what so many productivity-oriented people know. The Text Expander is an essential utility for getting things done. That's Text Expander by Smile, the makers of world-class software. Find out more at smilesoftware.com/podcasts. Thanks to Smile for their ongoing support of MacVoices. It goes back to my thinking on the iPhone and now the watch. It's a shame that Apple had to call the iPhone, because it's so, and it's absolutely appropriate, and we're way past
Oh, I
that
know.
point. And the same thing with the watch. It straps on your wrist, so therefore it's a watch, and that's one of its primary functions. But it does so much more, and I do get afraid that people that are not initiated into this stuff think of it in just those terms.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
like, wow, that's a lot of money to spend for a watch. I could just go buy a Timex at the drugstore. And
Yeah.
Yeah, you could, but you're not going to get the same functions. And
Yeah.
to your point earlier, yeah, I could go buy a Fitbit and it's a lot cheaper. It'll track your steps, and depending on
Right.
which model, it may do a few other things. It's still not an Apple Watch.
Well, and actually, that brings up a really good point, which is, and this is something that I did not expect at all from the Apple Watch. That's kind of amazing. Is that yes, it has the ability to track your steps. It's got an accelerometer, but part of it is it has this heart rate sensor that's built into the bottom of the watch that just stays like nestled next to your wrist, and so it can track your heartbeat, and it does that regularly throughout the day. It does it when you're exercising, especially. And basically, like during the day, I don't know what the increment is, but every once in a while it'll just take it like a quick reading, and that kind of helps determine like how many calories you're burning if you're checking your move rings, and when you're exercising, it'll keep track of that information on a more steady basis while you're doing the exercise. Well, that is, I mean, it's this device that's checking your heart, right? So there are features in here that if you have a heart rate that just sort of spikes, right? It will tell you that, it's detecting an irregular heartbeat. And this is something that literally has saved people's lives because they've been alerted by their watch that, your heart rate is elevated, but you weren't exercising, or you're just basically sitting here. And for a lot of people, that has been enough for them to either in some cases, like, go to the emergency room, or contact your doctor and say, hey, this thing happened, and get checked out. And the Series 4 and the Series 5 have this ECG feature, this electrocardiogram, and it will basically check the electrical impulses of your heart to check and see if there's any possible arrhythmia. And so it's not sophisticated enough to tell you that you definitely have some lingering problem, right? It's what they call a get the terminology right. It's a 1 lead test, and then if you go to a doctor, I think they do like a 6 or 12 lead test. But basically, like, it's good enough that if you have suspicions that maybe like your heart's not beating at the right cadence or something, you can run this little test, and it's super easy. Like you open an app, you put your finger on the digital crown, and you just basically hold still for 30 seconds or a minute, and it will measure the electrical impulses that it's reading from your heart, and tell you if you're in good shape, or if you should go get it checked out. And like that is kind of amazing because with all sorts of health things, I don't know, well, okay, this could just be me, but like you run into situations where you're like, like, I don't feel quite right, but I don't know what to do. And you go through that checklist of like, okay, well, do I have symptoms? Is this something that I need to call a nurse? Is this something that I need to go to a doctor's office? And all of those things are like, okay, well, now I need to involve somebody else, or maybe I need to wait on hold, or maybe I need to go to the emergency room, and then you show up and you realize that, it was actually just indigestion, and like all these different things. And this gives you a tool that will help you in a scientific way say, oh, okay, this tells me that I might have an irregular heart rhythm. Well, it doesn't tell you that you're having a heart attack. It doesn't do that, but it can sort of give you the first indication that maybe you should go get checked out. So then you go to your doctor and you say, hey, this happened. And then the doctor, who has much better knowledge and technology to do that, can check it out. And so I think a lot of people, and Apple has done studies with some heart health research companies and outfits and universities. Like this helps people take that initial step of, early diagnosis. Because if your watch can tell you, hey, you might have a problem, that is so much better than, a year down the line and you're like, oh, like I really feel terrible. And it's kind of amazing that a consumer electronics device like this, meant for everybody, not just a runner or someone who already has health issues, can sort of give you a window into your health in that way. And I'm going on probably too long about this, but I just find it amazing. And there's also, if you have a Series 4 or Series 5, it has fall detection, which like because of the technology in the watch, like somebody at Apple was like, well, we can tell if the watch has dropped suddenly, or if someone falls and their heartbeat is accelerated or whatever. And so if you have a fall, it will ask you, oh, it looks like you may have fallen. And if you did have some sort of an event where you lost consciousness or something, like it will, after a certain number of seconds, it'll automatically call 911 and also send a message to the people you've designated as emergency contacts and say, hey, it looks like this person has fallen. And it uses the GPS information so that the EMS paramedics can come and find you. I mean, that's kind of amazing. Hopefully it never needs to actually be put into practice, but it's kind of amazing that this thing can give you like maybe that much more of a chance of getting good medical help in an emergency. It kind of blows my mind. Even though, quite honestly, the only time fall detection has happened was I was at my daughter's soccer game, and I was turned the other way, and a soccer ball hit me in the back. It didn't knock me over, but suddenly my watch was like, "It looks like you've fallen." I'm like, "No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Don't call the paramedics."
And you just may have given folks the best reason to go buy an Apple Watch and to buy the book, because I really think you get one, you should get the other to make sure that you get the most use out of it. But it is productivity, it's preventative, it's health oriented. I mean, there's I sound like a salesman, I know, but I kind of feel really strongly about this. I mean, I know a couple years ago now, I bought Apple Watches for the people that were most important to me, because okay, I want you to put these on your wrists, and I want these features, for your safety, and as well as, well, not my safety, but my peace of mind. So.
Well, I mean, I know a guy who he's like, I'm buying this for my parents right now because, like at a certain age, if you fall, it can be a big deal if you fall, which is a big reason why they implemented this feature. Like a fall can be a serious thing, and this way, and like with walkie-talkie or something, you can check in on somebody right away. It sounds paranoid, and it may never come up, but it's like just that little bit of peace of mind. And from what I've read, the sensors and the accuracy of the data, it's not going to be as accurate as some other things like say a heart meter that is worn like right on the chest, like what runners wear, but it's good enough that they're doing large scale research programs on how people are using this. It's fascinating.
And the one thing that's certain is that we're just getting started with this. I mean, this is going to get, both from the medical standpoint and from every other standpoint, it's going to get better, more important, more sophisticated. And the one thing I disagree with you. I don't think we're paranoid. If you've ever cared for anyone who has had a traumatic injury or has gotten just a little bit older, you would pay a whole lot more money than an Apple Watch to, to have some of these monitoring capabilities. And it's not a case of spying on anybody. It's just making sure that, you or emergency services can be there when they're needed.
Yeah. No, that's a great point.
Yeah. So the book is out now. And of course, TakeControlBooks.com. And Jeff has put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this. And if you can't tell, go back and listen to this interview again, because there are just so many reasons that you should have an Apple Watch and know how to use it properly. And that's where Jeff's book comes in.
Absolutely.
Jeff, as always, I want to make sure we give folks a little idea of where they can find you if they want to communicate with you about the Apple Watch or anything else.
Yeah. So go to jeffcarlson.com. That's my website. You can, email me, jeff@jeffcarlson.com. And my Twitter is at Jeff Carlson, Instagram at Jeff Carlson. That's, I'm very fortunate in that my name is everywhere. So at least I got there early enough to get all the names. And so, I love getting reader feedback and, even things where people are like, hey, I don't think this is correct because, we put a lot of work into making these books as good and as correct as we can. So absolutely let us know if we miss something and, suggestions for future things to add. And quite honestly, like I love to hear how people are using something like an Apple Watch, because like this is based on my experience. I'm not a long distance runner or anything like that, but I use it for walks. And one quick tip that I think that I discovered while writing this, and it's kind of a cheat, but I believe that if you are exercising, especially if you are like competing with somebody, which is another feature, you can actually like do exercise competitions with your friends. It turns out that if you use the other workout, so the workout app has things for outdoor walking and running and rowing and swimming and all that, and then there's one that's just called Other. I think it records your exercise a little more aggressively than the others. So if you really need to close that exercise ring, like go for a walk and set it for Other, and I think that'll help. So little cheating tip that I probably shouldn't. Well, now I feel bad because
No.
Okay. Anybody that I'm competing with, don't listen. Just ignore that part.
Yeah. Well, there you go. If people didn't listen to the end of the interview, then they missed out on that tip. So there you go. Jeff, thanks so much. It's great to talk to you.
I love being here. Thank you so much.
We will do it again.
All righty.
Folks, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is Mac Voices. This is my Apple Watch. I want to know what you're doing with yours. Yeah, there's Jeff's Apple Watch. Please let us know what you're doing and go get Jeff's book. It'll help you do more with your Apple Watch. Until the next time, and as always, thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.